Hello, everyone. I want to take the opportunity to kind of do a video to talk about the solutions regarding the vacation rental and the enhancements to the vacation rental. I believe these are two very important assignments that you should have been able to solve. Vacation rental, I think you should have been able to resolve without too much issue. The enhancements, I think that's a little challenging, and but hopefully made you think a little bit. Again, the goal here is to push you a little bit and to push your, your ability to logically solve a problem. The expectations are some of you are going to be challenged by this and maybe have a hard time at this time. And with that, the goal is to make sure you understand the approach, the solution, and learn from it to apply it to the next thing. Okay, and keep building until you finally kind of have this aha moment, and this becomes again probably a much more simpler thing. The goal though is you have to stay focused on it. You have to learn from the solutions. You have to learn from this video, for instance, to properly move on. So no matter how well you think you did on this particular solution, if you're, I think it's worth listening to. We might even cover a couple of new concepts in this, and so I think it's worth listening to, making sure you're on the right track as we now continue on with the course. There's going to be a big change in the course after in a couple weeks, one where we're going to now start taking things and breaking it down into modules and passing data around. So it's really important you feel pretty comfortable where you are right now. What do I mean by pretty comfortable? You're not an expert yet. You got a long way to go. My God, I don't know if I'm an expert yet, and I've been doing it for 40 years. There's always something to learn. There's always an approach to think about. And so with that, remain calm, stay focused, learn how to solve problems, and I think you're going to be doing well, okay? If you get stuck here and there, you get stuck here and there. Learn from that, and you'll be fine. Okay, back to vacation rental. And so a couple of assignments ago, you've been asked to do the vacation rental piece, right? And vacation rental is basically where you're renting a condo in Florida. Sounds good, doesn't it? And either in the off season, the peak season, or the standard season. You supply the days. The days will then be multiplied by this the particular amounts based upon what season you're renting it in, all right? And with that, you should, and it's based upon if you rent the condo for 14 days, you get a 5% discount. If you rent it for more than 30 days, you get a 10% discount. So that's kind of where it's at. Then you have the tax associated with it and so on to come with the final total. So we wanted you to create the solution, the logic behind it, and that's actually the program to make this actually work. So I'm going to walk through this really quick. Again, I supplied this solution before, but here's the logic for it. Once again, doing this logic is really, really important. Okay, solve the problem before you dive into the program, because you get to think through it. And diving in the program sometimes makes it more confusing to think through it. With that said, we're going to get the days in a season. Again, don't do validation in your logic. I don't need that. It just makes things more complicated. Just do the process, okay? The validation, yes, you need to test it. Yes, you need to make sure you're doing it correctly, but don't put that into your pseudocode. I don't need that in here. In this case here, for this very simple problem, we're going to, if the season equals peak, our subtotal is going to be days times 150. Else, if season equals off, then subtotal equals days times 50. And of course, if it's not peak or off season, it's standard season and days times 100. That is how I wrote these structures. Hopefully you came up with something close to this. Yes, it's a nested if in this case. Could I have written it without a nested if and put an end if here and an end if here and an end if here? The answer is I could. It's just a little bit more inefficient because if it was peak season, why would you go back and ask if it's off season right afterwards? So that's where the nested if comes into play. Make sure you look at this and understand it a little bit and see how you can apply it. Once I have the subtotal, I keep going, again, top down here. And if I ask the days is greater than 30, my subtotal, I'm going to take off 10%. Thus, I'm going to take my subtotal and multiply it by 90%. Some people like saying 1 minus the 10% or 1 minus some type of a constant and so on. This is how I would do it. I did 90%. 1 minus 10% works fine too. And else, if it's greater than 14 days, I'm going to take off 5%. I like writing it like this because I know that if the days is greater than 30, okay, I'm going to deal with it here, and then I follow the structure. If it's not greater than 30, if it's less than 30, I go to the else. And I ask the question if it's greater than 14, which just basically says it's greater than 14, yet it's less than 30, or it would never have failed at this point. Does that make sense? So if it's, in this case here, if it's greater than 14 and less than 30, I get a 5% discount. If it's less than 14, in this case, I get nothing. I basically multiply my subtotal to my tax after I apply my discount, if there is one, and then I basically have this, and this should be minus, of course, minus the tax, subtotal minus tax. Oh, I'm sorry, plus tax. What am I thinking of? Wouldn't that be great if it was minus tax, is my rental total. And so that's the simple solution for the first one, okay? And hopefully you did that well. How I would apply for that is, let's see, which one I have here. Here you go. My solution looked like this. Once again, look at my solutions. If you're not looking at my solutions and learning, you're not following how I told you to learn from this course back in week 1. I gave you a long couple of videos on how to succeed in this. 1 is listen to all videos. 2 is look at all solutions and learn from them, and that's how you go about it. So I got my input, I got my days, I got my standard season, and then I got my output accordingly, okay? With that said, I sit back and my first name, I got a couple different things I'm validating here, a little bit different, maybe what yours was, because I think you had a few more things to validate. But for the most part, the ones I was more worried about was the days here, making sure you're dealing this with the data type, dealing with this with the range, and existence also with the data type. Does that make sense? Hopefully you got that down, all right? Basically, I took my, there we go. Oh, it's here somewhere. I took this right here. Let's go over here real fast. And my design. And I just went in and said if rad off. And you see, I started a little bit differently here versus peak, same type thing. And days, 14, and so on. As you can see, I have that. Yes, I don't have constants in here. Sometimes it's just easier for me to explain it without constants. If you have constants to holding these types of values, that's perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. Okay? And that's how this program should have looked. Not too much difference in this, okay? And then I display. Sure, you're using format currency. I'm seeing a couple people put dollar signs in front of their stuff. No, format currency. Use format currency. I will now start taking off for that. Use format currency to make that to actually format your output. Okay, cool. All right. Then what happened is you did all that. You probably felt pretty good about yourself. And I'm going to get back to the course here. Sorry about this. Let's get to here. Here we go. And so then you were given. I should have had this up for you already, but whatever. I'm not a professional, producer of videos, that's for sure. I'm on the wrong week here. And so with this here, you basically had to enhance your program. So enhancing means a program already exists and somebody's asking you to modify it. Sometimes that's harder than writing a program from the very beginning. So when I told you to analyze these enhanced requirements and really study how you would apply them, that's what I mean. But I'm going to tell you that a lot of your work when you actually hit the business world or where you actually hit the industry will be in enhance this program. Not every time we're turning around are we, writing new stuff. A lot of cases, we're spending more time enhancing existing stuff. So it's really a good practice to get into, getting into something and enhancing it and learning how to do that. Usually you're given requirements just like this. The goal will be is what do I do with these requirements? How do I incorporate these new requirements to what I already have? Sometimes it's pretty straightforward and simple. Sometimes you got to think about it a little bit, and it's not so simple. Regardless, it's another problem. You just can't plug it in or push it in there or force it in there. You got to think about it for a second, all right? And again, don't make it any harder than pure logic, okay, in this case. So if we sit back and we look at our existing logic we had here, this thing asks us, okay, I'm going to pull this down, include a Dropbox combo box that allows the user to pick the state they are from. Okay, validate the state has been entered. All right, well, that's not going to really affect my logic too much. If the renter is from Florida, then no tax should be applied. Well, all right, I have logic here. I deal with tax right here. So I'm not quite sure if I need to make this any harder, but I'm not going to deal with tax any differently, meaning or at a different spot. I still got to deal with tax once I get a subtotal. So how would I go about that? Well, it's pretty easy. So if state equals Florida, and how, okay, we're saying then my tax is going to equal 0. If it's not Florida, my tax is just going to be the same as it was before. Pretty simple. How'd you guys do with that? Did you overthink that one? I know I had a couple of questions from people where I think they did. It's just as simple as that. So if they picked Florida from their combo box, that's all you're going to ask. If CBO state.text equals Florida, then tax equals 0. If it's not, tax equals whatever it was before. Okay? Don't overthink it. It's just the question you would ask when the time comes. All right, that was an easy one. Also allow for the renter to select and discount program AARP or this. If they chose to do this, they get another 2.5% discount off the original rental cost. Ooh, okay, well, in this case here, I got my days. I got this discount right here, which is my days discount, so I'm going to add another discount. I would just put it in right afterwards and just say if AARP, and you can do this a couple different ways, but I have no problem somebody saying or AAA, then my subtotal is going to equal subtotal times point, let's see, in this case here, I said 2.5%, is that what I said? So 975, there you go. And if. What do you think? Pretty straightforward, not too hard. I think I'm meeting the requirements on this. If the renter is a repeat customer, you will need to determine what control to determine this. Okay, provide the following discounts. So in this case here, $30 if the total rental after the previous accumulated discounts exceeds $300. So I need to know if this subtotal, which is all of this right here, is if the discounts are greater than and so if they're a repeat customer, I give them another $30 off if my rental total, I guess in this case right here, my subtotal is greater than 300. That's all I need to really write there. Does that make sense? Finally, and this was kind of a biggie because this actually altered the way we needed to do things. After all the discounts are applied, ensure that the maximum discount is based on the season. Okay, and so after all the discounts are applied, including the repeat customer discount, ensure the maximum discount based on the season for off-season is 300, 400, or 500. Meaning this, as a condo owner, you know, if you rent my condo for 60 days in the peak season, I'm not going to max out the discount to what you can get. You're going to max out your discount based upon it's $500. I'm only going to give you up to $500 in discount. So what we need to figure out is where's the discount at after we take everything, right? And then max it out. Does that make sense? All right, this one's a little bit tricky. And so this one actually changes the approach on how I've actually done the problem. I probably guess that some of you had a hard time with this. And if you did, no big deal, but let's look to see how we need to solve this, okay? So I'm going to pull up my other one here, and let's look at this with the enhancements. So what I did here is I kind of changed some things around. I went ahead and I got my days and I set my season costs and everything is fine. Okay, that's remained exactly the same. What I had to start doing though is accumulating a total discount to figure out where I was. I literally had to change my logic because of that last requirement. Did you guys catch that? Did you guys do that? Or did this become a kind of a hard thing to do? If it did, like I said, no big deal. Hopefully this will solve your problem. So if you see here, what I did was I just kept discounting subtotal on the days. Well, I changed my approach in this. I sat back and started thinking about it going, I have to know what the discount, total discount is at the end here. So I wanted to accumulate that through. So let me show you how I did this. And so I sat back and I said, if days is greater than 30, my total discount is season cost times the 10%. And so in this case here, I did kind of flip things around. I just wanted to get the discount. So if my season cost was $1,000, my total discount's 100. If it's greater than 14, 5%. So if my discount, if my total is $1,000, I would have a $50 discount. I'm accumulating here. Look, I'm accumulating now. I'm going to say if you're AAA or AARP, I have it in two separate if statements. But if you have it as a compound condition, I'm not going to be too concerned about that. But I'm doing a plus equals. I'm going to accumulate this discount from the season cost for 0.025. Okay? Does that make sense? So if they got this discount, I'm going to take the season cost, which is the original cost up here, which is pretty much what that requirement actually stated, and multiply it by 0.025. Okay, and accumulated this. So I accumulate my discount. Repeating customer, the same type thing. If the repeating customer, okay, then if season cost, so this is my total minus discount is greater than 300, then I'm going to add $30 more to it. Else, if season cost is greater than 200, $20 more. Else, if season cost is greater than 50, $5. That makes sense? Okay, so if you're a repeating customer and you spend some more money with me, I'm going to give you a bigger discount the more you spend. And so I need to take the season cost and subtract the current discounts I have, but I'm actually going to add to it right here. Yeah, this gets a little tricky. So you may want to really look at this and make sure you understand it. Finally, I got to deal with that last requirement and max out my discount. And in doing so, if off season, okay, and total discount is greater than 300, then I'm going to maximize it to 300. And so what this is saying is that if you're in the off season and say your total discount is $1,000, I'm going to back it down to $300. I'm only going to allow you $300 in discount. How do we get a really high discount? Staying for 2 months, staying for 60 days or 59 days, the maximum amount of days you can stay. That's how, so you get up there, all of a sudden that discount gets really high if you basically hit this piece right here, 10%, if you think about it. It's $100 a day or $150 a day for peak times 50. So that's $7,500. And right here, 10% of that's $750. So I can get up there quite quickly, these discounts, okay? But I'm only going to allow you $300, I'm sorry, down here, $300 if off season, $400 in the standard season, and $500 in the peak season. So what I did is I checked each one to see what the discount was, and I set the discount back. I finished this up by saying my subtotal equals season cost minus total discount. I check for my tax like we did before. I put the subtotal. If Florida, then my tax equals 0. If not, I'm going to give my tax is going to be subtotal times 10%. I add those together. I'm back to, once again, subtracting the tax. I don't know why, but adding the tax to it, and I end up with my rental total. Does that make sense at all? This was a tricky one. It was meant to be tricky, okay? I was kind of seeing what you could do with this. If you struggled, I don't want you worrying about it. But if you struggled and you listen to this and you go, oh, okay, I see it, yay. Trust me, that's going to help you quite a bit as we keep moving forward, all right? If we look at the program, let's see, I got it over here. I enhanced my program by adding AARP and AAA and AARP, okay, in this case. I used radio buttons. You may have used check boxes. Some people I've seen used a drop down. So I think any of those would apply. I think I don't know. I feel like a radio. It's one of the two. You can't have both. So with that, I said, but you still have to. If you don't pick one, you don't get one. And so I didn't set any defaults there. So it's really how you wanted to do it. By repeating customer, I used a checkbox. And so you see that there. Okay. And my code looks very similar to my design. And so in this case here, I went ahead and validated. I went ahead and did this. I checked for 30 days. You see my total discount in here. I accumulate my total discounts. I'm still accumulating. It's just basically exactly like my design, And then finally, I asked this question here. I was supposed to do this little message box that says you maximize it, and that was part of the requirements too. And this is how I did that. And then I set my discount back and went from there. Okay. All right. And so let me show you how this all works. And there's the Florida piece, and finish everything up. So let's look at this. And working here, slowly, kinda, there you go. And for this one to work, we sit back and we put, let's see, Bob Nields, and we'll say I'm from Kentucky, so I'm gonna get taxed. I wanna spend 10 days in the peak season. I got AAA, and I'm not a repeating customer, and then there you go. Pretty cool. So 1462, everything works. Maybe I sit back and I change this and I want to spend 40 days now in the peak season. And I'm a repeating customer in this. Now all of a sudden you'll see my accumulated discount is $780 and my maximum discount for the peak season is $500. And I did that by accumulating my discount all the way through my code and comparing there at the end. So now all of a sudden my discount goes down to $500. There's that total. That gets a little expensive, doesn't it? But it's 40 days, for God's sakes. So in Florida, that sounds pretty good. We're doing pretty good there. So that's what, it's quite a few weeks, 6 weeks or so. So, probably not a bad price. And so that's how we basically did that. Okay. So once again, I highly recommend you take these solutions and you look at them and you understand them and you learn from them. Even though if yours was not correct or wasn't close, learn from them and make sure you're there. If you're looking at these and you're going, oh my God, this is Greek. I don't know what he's even talking about. You need to contact me so I can help you. Even though if you're taking this course online, you're not by yourself. Use your instructor and make sure you you understand what it is you're doing. This is the foundation. You need to understand because we keep building on this. You can't hope for later on that it might go away. It won't, all right? You keep building on this. You're learning how to become a professional programmer. And this just, in real life, this is a really, really, really easy problem versus what you hit up in the industry. And so you're allowed to struggle. It's no big deal, but swallow your pride and ask for help, or make sure at least you go through this video and you go through my solutions and you'll learn from them. All right, with that, I wish you a bunch of luck.